Today we're going to take a further look at LNAT reading tests. We will continue to introduce a few basic principles that you might apply to help you navigate this tricky reading test. If you remember, in our first LNAT reading video we looked at the principle of the non-redundant modifier, and by modifier I meant a word that adds information and reduces the size of the category we're looking for. Our second principle, Principle 2, look to essential reference. And by reference, I mean a word that refers in the way that here, there, now, today, etc. refer, and changes for the context in which they are used. I previously explained that linguists call these deictics, philosophers indexicals, and we saw that if one appeared in the question, then this invariably implies that there will be a number of answers under a different but similar reference. If these two principles are unfamiliar to you, look back at the previous two videos below this post. For our next principle, we're going to look at the world of facts. Now, it's common for LNAT papers to ask the reader to distinguish facts from non-facts, or vice versa. And this is what Principle 3 refers to, the fact versus non-fact principle. The use of non-facts, for example statements of belief, intention or opinion, will either be preceded by a verb of belief, such as suppose or imagine, or the statement will be modified to include such terms within them. Anyway, let's have a look at an LNAT reading paper, or at least one section within it, and we'll continue with our text on car ownership. Pause the presentation here and take some time to read through the text once more. We can see this question asks us which of the following statements, according to the passage, is a fact. Now, we don't need to get embroiled in correspondence theories of truth, or the fact-value debate, or the difference between opinions and reasoned judgments, or when and how expert opinion counts as facts. Now, we can keep it simple and just look to how to split off facts from non-facts, that is, statements of what is or are the case from statements of what is believed to be the case, or intentions and opinions. These non-facts are going to be marked by our language use in a way that statements of what we take to be fact are not. There are a number of ways that non-facts are signalled, and we need to be aware of these so we can recognise them in such a common LNAT question type. Have a read of this paragraph of the text. Now, right at the top we can see the word reportedly. Is this a statement of fact? Well, it might be a fact that someone reported something, but the content, that is, what they reported, is not a fact here. We can be sure that there has been a report, but we cannot be sure that such a report is a fact. It's clearly not an opinion, but that is where the distinction between fact and non-fact is important. If we think of distinguishing between fact and opinion, in cases like this, we will be lost, as neither category will capture the use of words like reportedly. So, in looking at our answer options, we can cross off the first option, as it refers to an uncorroborated report, signalled by the word reportedly, and does not have the status of fact. Okay, moving on. Remind yourself of this extract of the text. Here we can see a more straightforward example of a verb mostly used as one of locution, otherwise known as a reporting verb, through which the opinions of unknown commentators are given on the predicted number of future cars in China. Obviously, as this is an unverified suggestion by unknown commentators, it cannot have the status of fact, and so option B joins option A in being crossed off the list. Moving on to our next extract of text. we can see a statement is qualified as unlikely. And what is unlikely is the content of option C. Now, many people become confused at this point as to the difference between what is claimed to be a fact. Here, we're invited to read this as the unlikeliness of something occurring. And what is claimed to be a fact here, which is that thing occurring, with no mention of unlikeliness or otherwise. Now, option C asks us to consider if it's a fact that EU countries will not meet their target. And the text doesn't contain a statement which claims this as a fact. No, it contains a statement that it's unlikely to be the case, and so it's not a fact within the text for the purposes of our question. And so we can cross this one off as well. And in the next text extract, we see another way to present a non-fact. Read the start of this passage. And you'll see that here a categoric statement is being smuggled into the text inside quotation marks, signalling an informed judgment of Andrew McKillop about the future car usage in certain countries. But most importantly, he's forming a personal perspective on future events and making his judgment based on data which is assumed to be a fact. Now, it's the data which is a fact, not his judgment derived from it. The contents of that cannot be given the status of fact, as another person might judge differently from the same data. And so we can cross D off of our list of options. Now, further down the same text, he quotes data which is taken to have fact status, and so we can see the difference between a judgment and the data or evidence which informs it. The data is the fact, not the judgment which derives from it. So, being the only option left, E looks like being our fact. Okay, that's the end of our brief look at facts and fact status in multiple choice questions in LNAT reading. But let's just recap on our principles so far. Our first principle asked us to recognise that the key term would cover our answer options, but our specific option would be signalled by the modifier, and here it was the use of the word actual. Our second principle asked us to recognise that the key term would be qualified by a reference item, here a deictic of time, namely today. Our answer options would cover our answers once more, but our specific option would be distinguished by its compliance with the word today. And our third principle concerned the common LNAT question asking us to seek out facts. We didn't look for facts as opposed to opinions, but rather facts as opposed to non-facts. Remember, non-facts can be signalled by opinions, but other things as well, such as judgments, locutions and verbs of belief, and we saw examples of each of these in the text. I hope this quick look through LNAT reading and principles was of use to you. Look out for our next short video that runs through other principles to be applied to assist you to tackle this most challenging of reading tests.